All right, welcome to the City Advertising and Promotion Commission Workshop for May 12th, 6 p.m. in the auditorium. Okay, number one on the agenda is marketing funding support. Madison, tell us what we got going on here.
Okay, you should have a packet that looks like this. Highlights.
Got it.
And then behind that, these are the old guidelines, the ones that we are currently going off
Are
of.
they on the back?
Yes. What I've done, everything that's highlighted in yellow and on the revised guidelines are changes that I've made, bigger changes that I've made. Everything that's highlighted in green, I would either want your input or I'd like us to discuss it. So, to start out, I want to talk about what I believe the initial reasoning for having this program was. And do what?
Can I borrow your pen? Ron, do you have any extra pens by chance?
Yes, I should also say, if you have pens, do none of you have pens?
No, I don't.
Nick is the only one that gets a gold
It's the
star.
heat. It's the heat. My brain is not quite there yet today.
So the green ones, you haven't made your decision.
Well, I just want to hear what you guys think about it. And I mean, and we can talk about anything. These are, what I've highlighted in green is more what I really want your advice or your thoughts on.
So go ahead, tell us what you did.
So-
Tony, it was,
And I'm hoping you can back me up. I was hoping James would be able to back me up. I believe it was made to help new and growing events get on their own 2 feet, right? So someone comes here and they say, I have this really great event, we've never done it before. I think it's going to be great, but we don't have, a budget for advertising because it's our first year, we've never done it before. Well, this is what I think our program was made for. I'm correct in this. So that's why.
Taking care of us.
That's why, if you notice in here, and we'll talk about it, it says that, and in our old guidelines, it was similar, it said this as well. After 3 years, after 3 consecutive years, they don't receive
You're awesome.
funding support after that. Because at that point, their event should have grown, and if it's going to be an event that can stand on its own 2 feet, it should have gotten there by year 4.
Slider.
And are you guys in agreement with that? Do you think that's accurate?
Hang on, let us get our.
most grant
You got it.
programs I'm familiar with, like, the famous Walton Foundation, that's kind of what they're always about. If they find a good project, they like to give it enough money that it can.
Here, could you speak in the mic, please?
I'm sorry. They like to give it enough money that it by the 3rd year, it should have enough money to start, because the amount we give is, what, 5,000 at the most?
Yeah.
So, we would just encourage them, and I think that is the way it should stay, because
Right.
that allows us to grow more things.
Right, and so what the guidelines currently say is that we will supply funding for 3 years. At year 4, their event should have grown enough that they should be able to fund advertisements on its own.
So I would say it may be up to 3 years, because if let's say they're not effective in their first year, and we feel maybe it doesn't really warrant a second year. So I would maybe think of it as up to 3 years. So do a good job, and we'll fund you for 3 years.
Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page here because, the previous guidelines didn't really state that super well in the purpose, and so I kind of did. But I'm skipping ahead a bit. I have created a procedure for how applications,
I wanted to talk about that.
oh, you talk about it.
Well, here's what I'm concerned about this 6 months.
Okay,
And let me tell you why. Now, before COVID, that was probably okay. But we're in a post-COVID world, and things are changing so dramatically, so fast. I think that 6 months is probably, it would be difficult for someone who's looking for funding support for an event
Mm-hmm.
to actually be ready 6 months before.
I understand.
No, I mean, so,
But I'll tell you, let me just tell you why I put 6 months. So, and we can change this, and it's totally up for discussion. I put 6 months, so at 6 months prior to your event, I would like the application to come to us in the office, because there's so many applications that we get that don't even adhere to the guidelines at any capacity, right? And then I have to call them and I have to say, hey, you asked for $50,000.
right.
Or you're asking for us to pay for, your salary, right? Or whatever. And there's 15 reasons why I have to tell them, you got to change this, change this, change this. And then what I also like to do, and what I do now, before they come to you guys at a meeting, I sit down and I meet with them. And I say, here's our guidelines. This is what we pay for, this is what we don't pay for, this is the procedure, this is how it works, blah, blah, blah. That way, after they come to you guys and they get approved, it's kind of like, if they don't fully understand what we pay for, what we don't, or how it works, I don't want someone to, place an ad that is something that we don't actually pay for
no,
with expectation. So that's why the 6 months was there, just to give us
Get it.
time between 6 months and then at 4 months.
So let's look at it maybe from a different perspective. How long do you need to be able to look at and meet with them and to determine whether or not they actually even qualify? Do you need 60 days?
Probably not. That's a pretty big gap, but I didn't want it to be like, let's say, 2 weeks before our
Well, I'm just
meeting,
saying-
because what if I don't have time to meet with them or they don't have time to meet with me?
So what if we said you needed a window, the office needed 45 to 60 days?
Yeah,
Okay, you need that time. They apply, and you need that time to meet with them, call around, whatever it is you have to do to find out if they qualify or don't qualify, or even have them adjust
yeah.
their supports that does meet all the requirements.
And then have them meet with me, let's talk about the guidelines and how it works and make sure they
How long
understand.
do we need to be able to get it at this table to approve it
Before, you mean prior to the event?
prior to the event?
Because at this, we should also address that currently it says that we do not pay for any advertisements that were placed before they were approved by the commission.
Right, they still need
So
time to
they need a
approve.
gap of time
Yeah.
that makes it where those advertisements are advantageous.
If we see it,
3 months would be the minimum for
So
that.
It says 4 right now.
so we need 90 days.
90 days is probably the minimum.
Okay, so 90 days minimum for us to be able to get it and improve it, right? And here's what my concern is, but if we do it this way, I feel like you'll have them pretty much
Yeah.
squared away.
They'll be vetted, right?
They'll be
Yeah.
vetted in your 60-day window. And then when we get it, we're really more about, yes, you approve or not approve based on. So then that puts your whole window at 2 months for you and 3 months for us. So it reduces us from 6 months to 5 months.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's fine.
And it's worded a little differently where it's a little bit more clear.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to get it to you.
45 to 60 days
They need to
before.
get it, well, yeah, they need to get it to you 5 months before the date of their event.
Yes.
And then you've
At
got.
minimum, 5 months before
Yes. And then you've got 45 to 60 days.
to set up a meeting.
And then we have 90 days to get it approved.
You have.
And we have less than that.
Yeah.
But it gets to us 90 days before.
Now, we also should, what I wanted to mention is that I think, and I wasn't here, but I think you guys did it differently before. You only allowed,
We took them twice a year,
I was going to say, you did it what, like in the,
January
and then,
middle of the year.
Yeah, it was 2 or 3 times a year. Seems like we did it.
I was wondering, maybe you did it every quarter or something. So what
Twice.
Bentonville does, they have something similar. They take applications, like let's say in January, and they approve them in January for March, April, and May. And then we don't have to do this at all, I'm sorry, April, May, and June. So the first quarter, they'll take applications for the second quarter. The second quarter, they take applications for the third quarter. And we could do that if you guys want to do that.
I don't
But it
mind.
kind of,
being flexible, I mean, that seems rigid, right?
Yeah, I like the flexibility too, and to me, it feels like to me that every time we meet, we should have marketing support.
Well, I'm hoping it's
That's the
building
goal,
to
right?
that.
The
Yeah,
goal
that's
is
what I want.
that we build this into such a way that every month,
And people are constantly planning something.
that's right.
Yeah.
That we're releasing marketing support, 3 months before their event every month. That's the
Yeah.
ideal situation. They're applying 5 months before that.
I do want to point something out to you guys. On the third bullet point under procedure, we have a little clause here that says, if the commission cancels the meeting that the event organizer's presentation is scheduled for, the commission will allow the event organizer to present at the next immediate voting meeting. So if we have bad weather and we have to cancel the meeting for some reason,
It makes sense.
Yeah, I'm
You
glad
know, I
put
just
that in
don't
there,
want- I want,
'cause I was
you know-
thinking, I was like, what if something happens and
Yeah.
you miss, and then we go, well, technically you can't, that would be,
Yeah.
it would be an injustice to them.
so that's in there. I want to make sure you guys are okay with that.
Oh, completely. Because, the last 2 years, we've had
Ice.
multiple meetings
Yeah.
that were either postponed or canceled. And then the other thing that always happens to us, or at least the last 2 years, our meetings for November and December, a lot of times fall right in the middle of a holiday. It's really
Right.
hard to get
Yep.
everybody here. So there are those times where for example, since I've been on the commission, we've never had a December meeting, I don't
No.
think. Because it always falls on like December 22nd
Yeah,
or 23rd or even the
Christmas week.
24th, and you just can't. So anyway, we do need something that allows for them to know that they're going to.
Yeah. And you guys are comfortable with that wording?
yeah.
Okay.
I think I would take out if the commission, I would just say if the meeting is canceled. Because,
Yeah.
if you think about the mask mandate, that might be someone else that, if we have to
Yeah,
do that.
that makes sense.
Hopefully not again, but if we do.
Since we're talking about timeline, this isn't in our guidelines, but this is something that I do think we need to discuss a little bit, and I do not have the answer, just so you all know. There is an issue with us as a municipality allocating funds for the next year, because that year's budget is not set. So, someone comes to us in November, and they say, I have an event in February.
Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras
Gras.
did that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Perfect.
We can't do it.
The pageant, no, not the pageant, because he did all of his in December, but
He did it in January, didn't he?
he placed all of his advertisements at the end of December, so we allocated those funds for 2022.
Yeah.
Or, 2021. But anyway, there's an issue with us allocating funds to be used in the upcoming fiscal year, and our fiscal year is the calendar year. I know other places have to have a solution for this, because they have to be able to place advertisements, you know what I mean, before we approve our budget in January. I don't know if you guys have any knowledge on what they've done in the past, or if you know anything about that. I mean, we're going to talk to, we're going to, I don't know, maybe, I'm probably going to have to go to the municipal league.
The only thing that we can do, honestly, is that as the acting commission can put it in the budget. Like, we can say, we'd like to request that this money be put in the budget for next year. But really, it's going to come down to the commission on January's meeting, and that tends to change. That's the changeover. So we tend to have different people. It really would be up to that actual commission that sets that date.
And it's
be able to do
also, someone's come to us in October, their event's in January, or February, they're going to place ads in
This year.
November, December, and January. How do you,
It
seems
seems like,
weird, it's kind of funny, and
seems
I
like
don't
it
really
would
know
be
the
an
answer.
auditing, a question for the
Yeah, I was about to
auditors,
say,
really.
that's, Scott, you may
Why
have
don't y'all
any,
why don't y'all put that on your, let's figure it out calendar?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
'Cause, I mean, that
but I
happens
just wanted to make
all
you
the
guys
time.
aware of that there is an issue with us allocating funds for budgets that are not
Yeah,
placed.
I get
you
it.
know, that has
So-
to happen all the time. I mean, that's got to be something
I
that you
know,
can
that's what
work
I
out.
said. We've talked about this a couple of times, and I've been like, this has to be an issue
And
that someone else
especially,
can solve.
we'd love to support things in January.
Yeah, of
Absolutely.
course,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so we should.
That'd be the
more
time to
January.
support.
Yeah.
Like, bring in some new events, let's do
Yeah.
it.
But I'm all for getting people to plan ahead. I don't, that's showing up at the meeting the weekend before an event is just ridiculous. I mean, it shows a lack of planning on their part, which does not constitute an emergency on mine, is the policy I tend to follow in life. And I think by getting these guidelines, a lot of this is going to help improve that.
Well,
For sure.
Thank you.
The perfect example is the motorcycle weekend, It was obviously very successful. I mean, really, lots of people in town. And if he'd had that money 3 months ahead, I wonder how much more, he would have been able to do.
Well, and I think now he knows that we're
Oh, yeah.
willing to work with a viable event in town. I mean, that's
for
not a
sure.
problem.
Yep. Also something that is advantageous for them to plan ahead is that, we have connections that maybe normal business owners might not have, and we can help them.
Yeah, that's an area I think that we need
Yeah.
to be able to work more.
We can say, hey, this isn't really a great advertisement placement at this time.
Well,
right?
your-
Or it would be better if you targeted this demographic.
Yeah,
or
your
whatever.
office should be sort of a city liaison, for what we know
Yeah.
works. I mean, our advertising agency has taught us a lot about what
Heck,
works.
yes, they do.
And we can lend that
Every day.
information over. It's another way that we can help these folks have successful events, which could only help Eureka.
So this next part here, 30 days after the event, the event organizer must submit an event report. How could we reword this to where really by the next, so it's 30 days, and then our next meeting, we have a report that's given to us? Instead of just a 30-day, I feel like that if every, meeting, we're going to have marketing support, it would be nice if every meeting we had a report of a follow-up.
Be great.
You know what I mean? Instead of, so an event happens, how can we try to get that report quick enough that it's at our next meeting?
My only thing is that I would want them to have a full month to be able to provide true data. So maybe,
It's 30 days that they have to do the report, and then we see it at the next meeting after
Yes.
that.
After
Yes.
30 days.
but also, I'm glad you brought this up because I want to ask you guys, the current guidelines don't really state what that report is. What do you guys want to see? I would like, if it were a perfect world, I want a form that they fill out, that they can give us total attendees, or, like people who do stuff in the odd when they have their events that we help support, they can give us ticket sales, right? But the spring fling, right? We already talked about that. I don't know if he didn't sell tickets, so I don't really know how he would go about telling us how many attendees he had. But Jay Wilkes, he, in his other events that aren't in the odd, when he does stuff in the park or other places, he actively gives people, forms to fill out. And he comes back and he does a really good job at providing us a pretty good report of demographics even and things like that. But I just don't know how we force them to do that.
When Jay started, he didn't do that in his first year or two. And he was frustrated because he had trouble getting us to fund it. And the suggestion was made, why don't you find out how many heads in beds you have, and
Yeah.
what do people like to do? And so that's when he started doing that, and it is really helpful. So maybe we could give them a reported suggestion, that booth thing that he does where he gets people to fill out the
Maybe
form.
provide them with a form to
Yeah,
give
and
to
some
the
kind of an
attendees.
incentive, draw a name out and get,
Yeah.
a beer or something.
Let's put together a form and bring that back to us. And the form, I've seen this before where there's a formula that you can use for return on investment, so.
That's what we need. We need that, right? Because we're giving events X amount of dollars. We need to know that it was a good ROI for us and for them too,
We
right?
need to tell them that up front.
Yeah.
All the people that stay 2 or 3 nights, this is how much they spend, this is our return. And we need to give that to them up front, explain to them that we expect them to fill that out. That way they're knowing to look for it. We can do that. I think that Harrison has a ROI. You might reach out to some others and ask them if they have a formula that they use to calculate the return.
Okay. Okay, that is that. We go down to purpose. We already talked about this a little bit. Are you, just want to make sure you guys are okay with this wordage here? Basically says what I said.
This is under page 2? Is that where you're-
We're on B,
B, okay, sorry.
so sorry.
Are we going to be doing this in any, on the new website, any kind of digitally way, or is it
Yep.
still going to? Okay, so they'll be able to go online, fill it out.
They will literally just fill it out, hit submit, and it'll go straight to my email.
That's great, right.
So then we have the submission, how they submit. It's easy. Eligibility, nothing there changed. You guys are welcome to tell me if you want anything there to change, but I don't really think it makes much of a difference.
Does it say nonprofits?
It says that special, where does it say that?
Very bottom.
Yep, special consideration will be given to events that can generate national, state, or regional exposure for Eureka Springs and the surrounding region and nonprofit events.
Okay, thanks. You know, I think under the advertising requirements, what you say is fine, but it might be a little more positive to say 50% of advertising may be spent in Eureka Springs. When I read it at first, I thought, oh, we're not going to be able to fund somebody here. It almost sounds like, I mean, I know we want to bring people in from outside, but when you think about some of these events when they start, like, I mean, I don't know how often we get a lot of people from Berryville or Harrison here into town. I'd really like to know, maybe a little more with motorcycle. But there are markets within our 2-hour that I think some of the events that we do could attract.
This is something I want to talk about. So under guidelines and then advertisement requirements, what Carol's talking about is it says, all funds must be used for promotion and advertising of the event or project. At least 50% of advertising must take place 2 hours from Eureka Springs. That's there, so we're attracting visitors that are actually tourists, right? They're coming here, they're probably staying,
Yeah.
you know, they're definitely eating, they're definitely shopping, right? What, underneath it, it says, and this is what I would like you guys to give me some feedback on. It says the CAPC will not pay for any advertisements inside of a 30-mile radius of Eureka Springs. And that kind of goes with what I'm saying, right, is that we want to make sure that we're targeting a quality consumer, someone who's coming here and is likely to spend the night, likely to eat 3 times a day in Eureka Springs, likely, you know, to shop. And we can change this, we can change the wordage, we can say, if you guys want to, but
I
it's
know
just,
what
it's
the-
my opinion, is that we want to attract a quality consumer, right? Who's going to spend money in market, and not, you know, day trippers are great, because they do 2 out of 3 of those things typically, right? But, you know, we really want someone who's, maybe they're going to come here on Friday, it's too hard for them to go back because they're 2 hours away from home, so they're probably going to stay, and then that means they're probably going to eat and shop tomorrow too, at least. That's my opinion, and I'm open to hearing whatever you guys have to say about that.
Well, granted, people that just show up in town, there's not always a guarantee there's going to be somewhere for them to stay. It's better that they plan ahead if they're going to be staying. I like to attract people who plan ahead. But the people that do show up in town, yeah, I mean, obviously restaurants, retail, that's going to get a great bump, and that's something great. But as far as lodging goes, that is bad. I will tell you that I love our radio stations here because I've had my own guests tell me that they didn't even know something was going on in town until they were in town and they were listening to the radio, because I put it on all of the radios in our cottages. And I always tell them, you know, KESA, all of our radio stations here are excellent. They heard an advertisement for the chainsaw thing. You know, they didn't even know carving in the Ozarks was happening. They had not reached them. So they went out there and had a great time. But they wouldn't have known about it otherwise. And it was because it was, but that's part of a strategic advertising plan, that you wouldn't have that ad running 3 weeks before the event on a local
have it
radio
running
station. You would have it running
The week of.
the week of. You know.
That makes sense.
And that wouldn't be part of that's something that that's something Carving in the Ozarks or whoever.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to have a budget here of their own.
Yeah.
I mean, we're
So that-
supplemental. We're trying to
exactly.
help. We can't fill in
So
everything.
30 miles, we're talking about advertising, if we're talking about the corridor would start in before Fayetteville. Fayettille's what, 35 miles-ish or whatever.
So this would ensure that they could still place advertisements as close as Fayetteville, Rogers, Bentonville,
Okay.
Springdale,
Okay.
right?
I get you
But it wouldn't, we're not targeting Berryville or
I get it
Holiday
better
Island.
now, thanks, that actually clarified that,
Right.
they need to have a budget for that we don't pay for that day of.
You're right, and it's kind of, you said it correctly, we're supposed to be supplemental, and,
that makes
a lot of
sense.
the quality that we bring is advisory as well, and, anyway, but if we can change it to, if you guys want to do only so much % of your
Well,
funds can be used for that, but I mean,
Yeah, historically, this money has been used for largely people that grow things locally. It's been, like Voices is the museum's thing. A lot of these things are smaller events that have started out but have grown. And when Books in Bloom was here, what a wonderful event. Unfortunately, not being done anymore, but it was an event that brought people from far and wide. My issue is that I think this is a really great opportunity for people to advertise locally, and like KESA, the Independent, they do get. They largely concentrate here, and it's really good to advertise an event on the weekend that it's happening.
Won't our new website be filling in some of the gaps on that?
That would be nice.
well, you
The
would
new
hope,
website
right? You
is
hope that
the
what's
goal
going to
of the new-
happen, right? Because the consumer, what they do
Yeah.
is they say, what's happening in Eureka Springs
And you were going to send them to the
this
new
time,
website.
right?
The new
So
website's
what,
going to have it.
hopefully our SEO, what we're going to try really hard is, our SEO should be able to populate that, right? I don't go, what's going on in Eureka Springs? And then I look up eurekasprings.org. I go to Google and I say, what's going on in Eureka Springs, right? And so hopefully what pops up is our website that has what's going on in Eureka Springs this weekend,
Yeah.
right?
And so we're talking about two different things in marketing. We're talking about one, we're talking about marketing as once they're here, we want to make sure they know of the stuff that's going on. That's local marketing. But then the other marketing that we've got here outlined is clearly getting them from Fayetteville and beyond to Eureka Springs. And then once they're here, it really be the responsibility of the website and the locals, if they want to advertise locally, to do their own local. That's kind of how, and I think that's the commission's purpose, is get them here. But
It really, you're right, it really is our mandate. I mean, that's what we're trying to accomplish. That's how we can help.
It's also
The way I
about
see it, you're right.
how our consumers are moving, right? And I do think, you said KESA, they do a good job advertising locally. They're great. But this is me playing devil's advocate. My argument might be, I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I drive to Eureka Springs. Do I turn on the local radio station?
Can you
I
still,
don't know.
get Tulsa stations here? Or did they just shut it off and
But
listen to
also,
Sirius XM?
I don't know if I'm a good person, I'm really showing my generation here. I don't listen to the radio.
Yeah.
I'm listening to my Apple Music or Spotify or whatever. And I don't know, and I don't know if the answer is yes, they do turn on the local station. Maybe they do.
Well, I mean,
But
I do that when I
it's my-
travel
that's
too,
just my
because you don't want to sit there and hunt for stations, but I think that, like I said, as an innkeeper, that's one of the things that I do when I meet our guests. I always tell them, turn the radio on, you'll hear all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just talked to the ones that arrived from, I think they're from Tulsa,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, oh, yeah, we just listened to Sirius XM.
I guess maybe the question
We had a
is-
nice chat about what we listened to on Sirius XM, but I'm like, but we've got a great station here.
I guess maybe the question is,
And pick up the
should
fun
we,
guide.
should we be responsible for, once they're in market, should our funding dollars be used to capture them for the event?
No.
I guess maybe that's the question. From what you guys are talking about, that's how I'm getting there, but
I think the website would be good for that. I think as we get the website out and we create new stickers and postcards and whatever that will go around the lodging and those kind of places, so when people get there, that's maybe the program we want to look at. So when they get into a lodging, there it is. There's a nice sticker for them to take that says whatever,
So
sends them to the website.
will Molly's calendar, for instance, become sort of, will it grow into the website? So that will be,
yeah, I mean, she does such a good job on those with the graphics and everything, and they're pleasing, they're aesthetically pleasing, right? So you're walking down the street and you want to see the big pink poster.
yeah.
She does a really good job with that, and so I actually, not to get ahead of myself and so off topic, but I talked with, I had a really great meeting today with some people about placing some regional ads, and we will have a standing advertisement with them in their publication, and that poster would be great. You know, every month we just change it to our poster, and it's in color, and so hopefully we'll be able to capture them with things like that too, events-wise.
I
Okay.
think your addition there is fine with me. I don't know if you guys are all good with that.
I like it this way, but I'll let you talk to commissioners and
Yeah.
then-
And you guys
we'll maybe revise it again, because I think we need to move on, because
Yeah.
we'll drag this out forever if we don't.
This is the biggest topic of discussion I think that we'll have. So, our current guidelines that we operate on, these old ones, it does not say that there's any limitations to how many events you can submit for in a year. I thought to myself, my opinion is that it should be monetary, how much they can be awarded in a year.
I agree.
So this means that, and I put down 10,000, you guys can tell me if you agree with that. This means that, let's say we go with 10,000, they could ask for $2,500 for 4 events in our fiscal year. But I did keep that only one event, or how should I say this? Let's see.
No one event will be
Thank you.
awarded more than 5,000.
Right, so that stays. You can't ask for $10,000 for one event. You still have to ask for 5,000. And I picked 10,000 just because it seems, about right for me, but I'm open to hear if you guys think it should be lower or higher, whatever you think.
It's changed because the 5,000 at one time was a lot of money.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
We really weren't able to honor all of the requests that we had at 5,000. And we did give people, often we would give them 3,500 or 2,500, and certainly near the end of the year when we were running out of money.
Yeah,
So 5,000 for one event would still rather be the same. It's just that for people like the museum, he
yeah.
had 2
They want to
events.
do
Yeah.
3 events. They could do 5,000, 2,500, 2,500 if they want to.
I really think that that's too much, and I'll tell you why, because our total budget for marketing support is how much?
Oh, geez, I wish you wouldn't have asked me that. Hold on. I mean,
used
It
to
was
be
only,
around
I know last year it was only $35,000.
It was 35, I
And
think.
so, we get in a situation where all of a sudden somebody comes in and we fund 3 or 4 events, and then
You got 10 people with $10,000.
Yeah,
it would be
you're
much
right.
better for us to limit this a little bit more and try to do twice as many events.
We could make it 7,500.
I'm more comfortable with 7,500 or even 6,500.
And then, I mean, it's still,
And then if they're going to do multiple events, I'd rather them come and apply for all their events at one time, and let's fund it to the maximum for the whole year, as opposed to, here, we're going to do this one, and then you're going to be back in 3 months.
well, yes, but they would still need to submit 3 separate applications.
Yeah,
Okay.
3 applications, one total amount.
Yeah, I guess we were kind of talking back and forth in the office, Libby and I, and at first I was like, okay, 3 events a year, whatever. But then I kind of thought, well, they can only submit 2 events a year or something like that. And then we kind of were like, well, what if they had 3 or 4 really great events? We want to be able to help those, I suppose, but there still needs to be a monetary amount that we're awarding one organization. So,
And we also get in a situation where, we awarded money to an organization and they didn't spend it all.
that's true.
And they canceled events, and that money was held for them.
That's true.
Right? And then they didn't spend it all, and maybe if we had restricted them a little bit from the beginning, we could have then had more money for someone else.
I think Jay's the only person that has 3 separate events. They're all titled the same, but
Yeah, but I think what's happening is now that we've shown that we're giving out money for more multiple events, we're gonna have more people
show up, yeah.
with multiple events, right?
Yeah.
That's where we're headed, is more people are then gonna go, oh, my event was successful, good.
All right.
And they're gonna come back and say, we wanna do this again, and 2 or 3 times a year, which is great, but we need it to be under a certain cap. I'm more comfortable with the $7,500
What do you guys think about that?
for me.
Because Scott just told me, and I think he's right, I think our budget is 50 for this year. So
It's
if
around-
5 people came in,
Yeah, it's around,
and we would be
it's
wiped
45 or
out.
55 for, I think, for
Well-
marketing.
Well, what I did notice too is that people come in and I look at their forms and it's rarely ever somebody asking for $1,700.
Right.
It's like 5,000,
Yeah,
5,000,
yeah.
5,000.
Yeah.
Because if you tell
And
them,
like Jeff
yeah,
said,
you can use it.
if we've devoted that money to them, then we can't give it to anyone else. And what if they don't use it? And
If
that,
they don't use
his example of the event that canceled a lot of their events and didn't use it, that was a particular,
And that hurt.
yeah, that was a particular point for me that I was questioning why we should be doing this in this manner.
More than-
This is helping.
Yeah,
I think guideline, now, and that's a question for you, are these rules or are these guidelines? How rigid are we going to be with this?
well, I mean, at some point, right, you guys are going to have to,
The rules for her, but they're guidelines for us because the commission can change its mind anytime.
If we
And
vote
I-
that
and
way,
I-
if
We
we,
can override
I
ourselves.
do need you guys to, we have to discuss that a little bit, right? If someone, like, let's talk about the timeline requirements, right? If someone goes, it's a week before their event, and they want to, whatever, will I have the commission's support to say, no, you cannot go to the meeting because you don't adhere to our timeline requirements?
Yeah.
yeah,
So, I mean, we have to talk about that a little bit, right? Because I don't
Yeah.
want to get into a situation where I say, nope, it's 2 months before your event.
we got you, girl. We got your
And I
back.
just, I don't want it to be like the office is the bad person. I mean, I need everyone to understand here that this is why we're doing these things. And what a really great idea is that if, say that happens, someone comes in 2 weeks before their event, right? And they say, hey, I want to go present at your commission meeting next week, right? And obviously they don't fit our timeline requirements. I think it would be good if the office, if I give you guys a report
Yeah.
every quarter or so, whatever it would be, that says, here's all of our submissions, here's the ones that were denied by the staff, by me, and this is why, right? And that way you guys will know.
Well, we need that for the public record.
Yeah.
We need you to report that. These are the people that applied, and here, if they were rejected, here's why. And we can read that in, or we can make that public. But that
Yeah.
needs to be just transparency.
But I'll need the commission's support on those types of things.
And I think some of the reasons for the last few months are that, Jay had spent money knowing we would give him money, and then, that he couldn't do his event. So
Yeah.
that was understandable. I think we're going to have to cut some people some slack because we have told several people to come back. I know there's a group in town, the Eureka Follies group, it's the Five and Dime, and they've been working steadily, I mean, really for a couple of years to develop a really hilarious show that they intend to run every year. They're going to come in and do it
Yeah.
for us so we can see it. But we had told them to basically come back in the spring of this year. So they will be in, I think I sent you a note today that they'll be in to talk to you. And there are a couple of others.
And it might be a compromise that, through the rest of this year, we have a little bit
Yeah,
of a
we're
leeway,
gonna have
right?
some-
Well, you just
Transition
listen to people
Yeah.
because they're going under the former rules, so.
Okay, so I'm going to revise this to, are you all comfortable with 7,500 annually?
Well, how many does that give us? 50,000 at 5 only gives us 10, right? So that's not a lot of,
But
I think it should
we
be
know
less.
we're going to have people, like, for example, Lacey Moffett with Jeep Jam, she did a great job. She came
really
in and she
did,
said, I need $1,250,
Yep.
I think.
yep.
She
was
did a
great.
really good job.
And she was right on
Is
point,
that a place where the front office can help vet
Yes.
and help guide?
and that's what they need to do.
Because you look at the materials and say, you might actually do better if you asked for
That's
this
right.
Yeah.
amount.
Yeah.
Because if you just
For
keep
sure.
going in for full amount, at a certain point, if we're looking at the budget, do we have to actually say no because we may run out of money? I mean, is that a
Yeah.
potential problem?
We've had to
Yeah.
do
It's
that.
happened.
Yeah, we have had to do that.
Okay.
In years past.
So those are some good changes. I like them.
So I'll keep it right now at 75, and then if you guys have other thoughts on that, you guys can let me know, and we'll,
I'm inclined for 5, but they're right. Everything costs more now. I get it. It sucks. I mean,
Yeah,
And this is only the
made-
first 3 years, right?
yes.
First 3
Yeah,
years
yeah,
of
yeah.
it, so it should some drop off, and then we get new things coming, so it should
and
be
that's, I
ever-changing.
think that's the goal of this, right?
And
is
if
we
they
get-
do their job and they're super successful, maybe someday, they'll be like pushing them out to, they can leave the nest and
Yeah,
be self-sufficient. And then yet at the same time, we could still help them in some capacity with the website.
Yeah, we
you know.
definitely want their events on there.
The website is beautiful because it's this ever-changing brochure, the no printing fees. I mean, there's really, other than labor costs to input information, it doesn't really cost us a lot that isn't already infrastructure anyway. So utilizing a new website, I think, is going to be like, it's
Yeah.
going to change the game next
It
year.
is.
Yeah,
It is
sure.
definitely. Okay.
I think we're going to see a big boom. on that.
we're going on to F, public record, nothing of that has changed. Reporting, we already talked about this a little bit. I'm going to do some research, hopefully provide something for them to send out.
Return on investment form.
Yeah, good idea.
That's pretty detailed. I think we should challenge them on this to really do their research and ask people where they're staying or who they're working with.
Right, because they should want us to know that, so next
Yeah.
year, you guys can make an informed decision,
That's
right?
right.
Advertisement placement, so upon commission approval, the event organizer must submit advertisements to the tourism director for approval before the advertisement is placed. This actually has been in effect. No one does it. But I'm going to push this now because there's a lot of things that they have to adhere to if it's an advertisement that we are paying for through this program. If you look on, it talks about our logos and, if we want to do regional requirements, things like that.
You know,
Anyway, I just wanted to
think
make sure you
before-
guys
yeah,
understood that, too.
Before, it wasn't just, we definitely made them approve, because often they didn't have our logo on it.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So that is something that actually hasn't changed, but I just wanted to point it out. We move into, none of this has changed, this is the logo usage. I do want to ask you guys, I'm a really big branding person. If you notice, everything I give you has our logo. I use our approved fonts. Do we want to make them adhere to our brand standards, or is this outside of the realm of that? They're placing their own advertisements.
Yeah.
Is the logo enough?
Yeah,
Logo's enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
absolutely.
So then we get into,
Then, otherwise you'd be getting involved in their branding.
yeah, you're right.
so.
Yeah, you could get yourself work. You get a lot of extra work there.
You're
real
right.
fast.
So then we get into what our program funds can be used for. None of this has changed.
Okay.
Now, what I want to point out is that it says events, website development, and management, specific only to the event funded.
Where do you?
So you're on CAPC Marketing Funding Support Programs funds can be used for.
Can we go to printing first?
I'm sorry?
There's this number 2 or
Printing.
printing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just feel like there should be some, maybe some clarification there
Okay.
on what can be printed. Okay, for example, we wouldn't necessarily want them to maybe print tickets, or there's some things that I think that they may not.
So posters.
Yeah, so I think we would want to list,
Flyers,
that,
handouts, rack cards,
those kind of things. Maybe we should have a little list there.
That can be,
That can be,
yeah,
so that it's a little bit more clear for them.
so I'm actually,
because you don't want them
forgive
turning
me,
in
I
a...
actually might be wondering if it's supposed to be on the line below it, and my format is weird, and it should say printing ad placements in or on newspapers,
Okay,
magazines.
that makes more sense.
Oh.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But I also think you're right. I do think maybe we should have something like, we do pay for
Yeah,
these type of printed materials.
right. And maybe, I don't know, I know we use a couple of local printers, but maybe we list them and say, here's the local printers that we work with, so that they know the guidelines as well.
Yeah.
So it's just a little easier for them.
It does say direct mail. What do you guys think about that?
Who does direct mail anymore?
That was my thought as well. I mean, we don't.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be
Nonprofits.
mailing out any advertising.
Nonprofit,
Nonprofits
it's still a
do.
viable marketing. I'm not trying to.
Yeah, no,
No, it still works, but I think in this setting, I mean, you
Yeah.
think about direct mail, are we saying that any of our events are going to print and put in the newspaper in a town, or?
I mean,
Do we
don't see
usually
it
one,
being-
like where we mail out, like, thanks for coming to Eureka, and like that, and have like a postcard of Eureka,
Yeah.
come back and see us, but I don't think for each event.
I'm going to leave, I'm
would
personally
need
just
to
going to leave
be-
that to your discretion on if we.
Back in the heyday of direct mail, if you got, you know,
You
a
were.
1.5% return
Oh.
on 100,000 out, you were lucky. You were lucky.
I'm going to
So
leave that to your discretion and
okay,
marketing.
I'm inclined to take it out, but,
I would not encourage that
I wouldn't either.
people spend their money.
I mean,
on
I
that.
suppose they can pay for a direct mail if they want to.
Well,
I just don't
sure.
know if it's something we want our funds to be used for.
Yeah, I don't think
Anyway.
it's an effective marketing tool.
Right.
so.
So, I don't remember where I was at. Events, website development, and management specific only to the event funded. So,
As opposed to paying for their entire new website.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause
So
that's what, I
this-
think that's what Mardi Gras
It's
asked
what
us
Mardi
for
Gras
last
asked
year.
us for.
But it does say website development for the event, so could you interpret that as it's a new event and we're making a new website? You know,
I think this needs
or
to
we're
be-
just making a new website. I'm halfway inclined to take all of that out. I don't know if we
I'm
should be
comfortable.
funding
Yeah,
their
I completely
website.
agree with you. Here's the thing, if even if they come to us 5 months and we approve it before, and they're trying to develop a website for an event, and we're trying to pay for it, it is not going to have the traction to actually function and work in that period of time. It's just not, and Patrick would know more.
It's not how the internet works.
It's, you know, it takes, now, it might be different if they came and they said, we're just updating a website that we've been using for years, and it's, you know, already
Well,
producing.
and theoretically, in the case of the cruise, they had a website, they had SEO in place, they had a presence on Google. They were combining all of the cruise
Right,
together, and
that's
that's why we approved that, I believe.
That's correct.
That was you know, and that's the thing, is there's always different
Yeah.
Yeah.
situations, but
It's
I
never going to be
agree.
exactly the same.
It's-
Paying for a brand-new site with a brand-new domain for a brand-new, that should be something that if I was putting a business together, I would already have that in my budget.
And
I
it
mean,
says,
that's granted, you need to have a web presence already in place. They shouldn't be counting on us to pay for that.
and it says events, website development, and management.
No, I would eliminate that, and then if you come across a case where they need money for something, you could bring that to the commission and say, hey, there is a little bit of money needed for a specific web thing.
Especially if
And
they
then-
can
and then
show us-
the commission could look at it and
Yeah.
decide if it is
If they
viable.
could show us that they already had a presence, they're just combining or they're updating that presence.
I agree, I think we take that out, and then
So
That's an
then the
exception.
line below that, it says, if the event is part of an established website, only expenses related to the updating of information for this event are allowed. The website must be promoted through advertising. Once again, I kind of think it's a little sticky. I mean,
I do too.
I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't really like that at all either.
just take it out.
Okay, I'm glad you guys agree with me.
And if a question comes up, then we deal with the question. You
Yeah,
know?
right.
That way, we're not just offering.
If it's a special case.
Yeah, I think that's a good guideline.
I'm inclined to take the next line out as well. Brochures must be available at least 60 days prior to the event. I think this is maybe a little dated. are they talking about rack cards?
Yeah.
So I'm going to take that out as well, unless you guys have anything, any advice on that. Okay. Cannot be used for. I'm going to read through these. Let me know what you guys think. This is what the funds cannot be used for: prize money, donations, scholarships, awards, plaques, or certificates, expenses incurred before funding approval or after 90 days of completion, annual operating expenditures of the organization, professional, legal, medical, engineering, accounting, auditing, or other consulting services, salaries of full-time staff, real property, which includes banners,
So,
capital improvements, tangible personal property, interest or reduction of deficits or loans, any local travel to and from, private entertainment, food and beverages, making payments or reimbursements for goods or services purchased for previous or other events, website development or management for general organizational purposes, other event expenses including but not limited to, it has a bunch of things there. Anything you want me to add? Anything that,
So the banners, I wanted to talk about.
okay?
So they cannot use this money for banners.
That's what it says.
well,
I'll tell you my opinion.
I could see how that would be, the difference between a banner that has dates on it and location
Yes.
would be an advertisement.
Right.
A banner that is just a branded banner that they can use every single year is what I would consider real property.
Got it.
I also would want to point out, to play devil's advocate again, if they have a banner that, let's say, goes across Main right there, again, is that paying for capturing consumers that are already in market? Right? Because they're already here. It's the same thing like we talked about regionally. They're already here, right? You know, we've already got them in the,
So that puts it more in the organizational advertising portion of their,
maybe, I mean, just to give you another, like,
yeah.
avenue to think about that
If it's a
on.
billboard, if they were advertising on a billboard, and
Well,
it was a
that
bill, that's a marketing thing, and it
Yeah,
would be
that's
in
true.
Fayetteville, or it would be in, it would be out of our market. I think that would be okay. We could
Right.
pay for that.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
But paying for a banner that becomes
That's in the
property,
city.
it's in the
That's
city.
theirs.
I like
That-
that. I think might be.
Does that make
It
sense?
just has to be clearly drawn. If they're printing a banner and it says, "Come to Eureka Springs on these dates," and it's being presented in Fayetteville, or if it's in
Yeah.
Bentonville, or
Which
That makes sense.
most people wouldn't use a banner for that purpose, right?
No, they would.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think that eliminates what she's
Yeah,
saying.
that makes.
Madison
So-
is correct, I
it
think.
just needs to be clarified.
That would be a
So
local.
I can maybe put a little more clarification here.
Yeah, just clear it up, and I think it's fine. The only other thing that I think needs to be added to all this is to make sure that people understand there needs to be, that no money transfers. Like, if they don't spend all their money, they just don't automatically get it for the
I
next
have
event.
a note there.
Yeah.
It says
Make-
that.
Make sure that they understand that,
If
If
you
they
do
don't
not
spend
use
it-
all your funds, you do not use all your funds.
that's right. you
It
did-
cannot be used for, and it does say that, making payments or reimbursements for goods or services purchased for previous or other events.
Right.
It's that kind of is getting there, but we could,
Because the temptation
clarify that a
is,
bit more.
oh, well, they allocated X amount of dollars, we didn't spend all of it, so we'll use it for the next year or for this other event. Can't be done.
yep.
Yeah, okay.
Sounds good.
Anything else on that at all?
Y'all go ahead and keep going, I'm just gonna step out.
Pretty thorough.
Good. And you guys are welcome to, if you made any notes, feel free to leave it for me, or you can take them if you want to. And let me know what you think. If you want to go home and, because we didn't go over what the previous guidelines looked like and things like that. I tried to note what we actually changed. But if you want to read through that and say, I think we should add this, or you didn't add this, whatever. Anyway, go home, feel free to let me know. At our next meeting, I'll put this on the agenda for you guys to vote them in.
Okay.
So as it stands, we're still going off of this, but hopefully by next meeting, we'll be able to start here.
I hope so.
And then I think we're good. Are you guys good on the guidelines? And then all we have left is Scott wants to talk to you guys about the tax forms that he and Libby have revised.
Very excited about this.
It is very exciting.
Sure looks more official.
They kicked butt on this, I just want you guys to know.
Just one suggestion is maybe if we could get their website address on there, if they have a website, just because we need to capture that.
Under,
Whenever we
when they,
Just
apply.
whenever on the
Email web.
application, yeah.
That's a good idea. I'll make a note, Scott.
I said Madison's taking 55 minutes, I will take 5.
I apologize.
I've given you, this is an informational presentation. I've given you 3 packets, I've color-coded them because I know that
Oh,
Patrick likes color. If you will look at the green one, it was probably in the back, those are actually copies of what Bentonville, Rogers, and Hot Springs are using. And this is a source where we started to drill down to figure out what they're looking for, and keeping that in mind when we started looking at our own updates to our own requests for application and monthly sales tax report. If you look at the color-coded one that's orange, that is our, the lead page there is our existing application for a tax permit from CAPC. If you turn to the back page, this is what we're initially proposing as a draft. You can see that we're asking for email information, and also, I don't know why I didn't think about the website. That's a good idea. With everything going through, well, that's a good idea. Well, that will be added. And down there, you'll see lodging, and you'll see about 9 or 10 different categories. You'll see food and beverage. You'll see 8 categories. These categories come from our ordinance. This will give the requester the ability to check the appropriate boxes so that we know the type of business that they're claiming. So when we do a setup, we can get them in the proper category. Okay?
Scott, so what about places that also use Airbnb? It's an OTA technically, but Airbnb is paying those tax payments, of course, in that lump sum, right? Would it benefit you to?
We're going to talk about that here in a minute.
Would it benefit you if a lodging was a hotel who had cabins, who also had an RV, and did Airbnb? Would you want all of those checked?
Now, that's what you guys need to
Yes,
decide.
I think so.
And the reason I put this out as it is for you to review
Okay.
and to make suggestions. But
And
the
then
categories listed there are what are listed under our ordinance.
Also, let me just clarify, every business that's at a different address will have to have a different,
So business address and corporate address, or
business address. This would be actually the business
we
address
need location?
location. And
Yeah.
anyone that has a separate location, they have to remit separate forms for every separate location, correct?
Now, that's something, I can tell you what I think, but we need to discuss this, and we probably need to vote on this at some point.
Yeah, no, definitely.
The commission, according to the Arkansas Department of Sales Tax, the commission has the authority to require how they want taxpayers to report to the commission. Okay? In the past 10 years of reading the minutes, that's never been officially adopted as, for example, each physical address should have its own separate license and report separately. It's never been addressed as in that manner. So I think at some point that needs to come up and be voted
I think that
on.
would just be great for our reporting. I'm concerned, I think about my wife who has to do all this paperwork and others that do it, I also don't want to make a burden. I don't want to turn this into a big burden for them, but if you're just looking at it from our point of view, it sure would be nice if every address, that way we have a better accounting of each of those. And if we ever had to go to a situation where there was an audit, it sure would be a lot easier for us, correct?
I think it's best that we have if you have, for example, let's say I have 2 or 3 businesses and they're all separate businesses. One's a restaurant, one's a B&B, and one's a campground. In
All
theory,
all three with different addresses?
all three with different addresses.
Okay.
They should each have a separate license issued by
agree.
the CAPC.
I agree.
In thoughts? I mean, that seems reasonable to
Because
me.
how else are you going to
That way you can
audit a
always
convoluted
differentiate.
statement?
Well, the
People that have
city's going to
multiple-
require they have different business license, right? The city
Yeah.
requires every address to have its own. You can't have a business, 6 businesses
Yeah, that
that have
would
one
only be
address.
logical.
You can have a
one business
corporate, a corporation that owns those
All of
three,
them.
but I would go get separate permits. And
So
I would
separate.
see that they would be doing this with you as well.
They should be.
Okay. I think that we should adopt that plan, bring that to the commission, we'll get a vote on it.
Okay.
We'll get more
Scott, I
discussion.
have a question for you regarding the ABC. In California, I ran a convention center, and we had, refreshment stands, we had food carts, we had restaurants, we had all different types, and the bar services were, of course, this is a different state, a different city, but the type of bar, like the bars that we had in our exhibit rooms, they had one, we reported those together because the use there was very, very similar. It was really easy for us to tell if someone was stealing, for instance, from room to room. We could figure that out. Same thing with the, with the refreshment bars and the hotels. But we were required to have a different license for each type of activity we had. Like our restaurant had a particular name, and it had its own license, its own business license within the convention center, and it had its own liquor license. So I'm wondering how that law works here.
We, number one, we have a meeting next week with an attorney that is, specializes in A&P, Advertisement Promotion Commission. So that's one of the questions. We have several, but we're going to be getting legal guidance on how to answer your question. I can tell you what I think, but it's about what the law says.
Right.
And
My
that's,
understanding, and it's not by any stretch that this is correct, I believe your ABC license is based on one address. So here in the state of Arkansas, you get one license for one address,
that's correct.
even if you have multiple restaurants in that.
That's correct.
I think does that answer your question?
It does,
A little
but referring back to what you were talking about, somebody that has an RV place and a restaurant and a hotel, that's just based on location, right?
Correct.
That was 3 different addresses.
3 different addresses.
They would have to have 3 ABC licenses.
Right. So does the CAPC have the same ability to request that
We do.
a larger entity report certain things separately?
I believe we do, and I would like to get that in writing as a directive from legal counsel so that we can present that and you have something that when you discuss it is the law. So we're heading our organization into establishing solid procedures based on law so that we know when we go out and do an audit on someone and, you can't combine 3 or 4 businesses under one sales tax form. I mean, because we've established by law and we've also established by vote. So, you're in violation. So what's the penalty for that? Or work with them to correct the situation. That's what we're trying to do.
And I would assume the ABC, when they do inspections or audits, figure out if water's being put into drinks. Who figures out how they're keeping their...
Now, that's a reporting issue between the business establishment and ABC. And they'd come out and they do audit, I'm sure. But I do get a report from ABC showing who's licensed in our county with what type of license. And they are also asking me who is delinquent. And so they use that information to go out and discuss the delinquency with the taxpayer.
And are we alerted if somebody...
Pardon me?
Are we alerted if they're cited by ABC?
Typically, no, because that's a kind of like we're out of the loop once that happens. That's
Got it.
between the owner of the business and ABC.
Okay, thank you.
But that does come up.
I think this is fantastic. The only thing that I think that maybe we should be asking is if they are, do they have an ABC license? Should we be asking for them to tell us that if they do have an ABC license?
I had that initially on the form, and I took it off until I can get an answer from an attorney.
Okay, perfect. I think if.
Because I do keep up with that on my spreadsheets.
Right, just so that, and it's just an information thing for us, so that we
Correct.
know who is serving alcohol and who is not.
Correct.
And maybe rather than asking them, just ask them to attach a copy of it.
Yeah, and then, so just to be clear, somebody would fill this out for one location, and if they were doing Airbnb, they would check Airbnb.
Yes.
If they were doing VRBO, they would check that.
Correct.
And if they were a restaurant, they would check all three of those, correct?
Yes, and let me say this. To fill the gap in of information, I typically try to call and talk to them verbally
Okay,
and get an understanding and build a rapport so that if they have an issue, call me, and I get an explanation as to what kind of business you're operating, so I can help you with your taxation questions.
yeah, okay.
Great,
I love
Okay.
it,
really, really good.
yes.
On the pink copy,
That one can
that is the top copy is our current monthly sales tax
Questions?
report. The second copy is what we built to present as a draft. If you'll notice, we asked for the email address. I'm also going to add the website address onto that. The first block under gross receipts, total by type of business, it lists Airbnb, and the second has hotel, motel, lodging, cabin, et cetera. And then the third part is restaurant, bar, food trucks, et cetera. Remember, all of this information, except for the VRBO, came from our ordinance. Now, help me with this, Madison.
What do you want me to do? Explain.
We have been concerned that VRBO is operating, but we receive no report from VRBO or no sales tax collections from VRBO
That's
as we
correct.
do with Airbnb.
That's correct.
So,
We have been in contact with VRBO, and we received a contract for review today. We are going to be one of 3 cities in the state of Arkansas to receive a request for us to join a VRBO, and they will start reporting to us the sales tax collected from their customers and a report. And what we're trying to get from them is a listing of vendors.
and they will remit the tax like Airbnb does as
Yep.
well. Stop saying it so solemnly. It's such a good thing, Scott.
Um,
T and Libby,
Will
they
it be
work
do we
hard.
know if it'll be a detailed report? Or
We're-
we don't know yet?
We don't know yet.
Okay,
Now, that's what we want.
yes, that's what we want.
Hot Springs, I talked to them today, and they sent me a copy of their contract, and theirs goes into effect June 1st, okay? So we compared our contract to theirs, they're identical. And I talked to the CEO, and they're trying to get a breakdown, but VRBO is not willing to give that to them.
Yeah,
So
to
I
set
don't know if we'll be
expectations.
successful.
To set expectations, I'm assuming it'll be like Airbnb, we'll get one check.
But what
But-
we are, but this, the way we're doing this now, they're going to report their Airbnb, right? And then they're going to deduct it.
Correct,
Right, so what,
So
so
we'll
let's say.
know,
Yeah,
correct.
I'll tell you right now, that's going to be a lot of legwork for me. I use Think Reservations. It eliminates, if the taxes aren't collected, I don't ever see. Now, I can do a separate report to show what did I do in Airbnb, but when I do my tax report, it eliminates anything that wasn't taxable.
and I think that's the question that I had earlier in the office.
So I'm going to have to jump through a few hoops to get that number for you, and
How
that
far
means
is-
that my gross sales won't be accurate. And also, I have different gross sales based on whether we sell gifts in the gift shop, in our vending, if we do vending, like Cokes up in the front office, mugs, robes, those kinds of things. A lot of those they're not hotel tax, so I have those in a separate number, so.
so you can't pull, because I don't know what it looks like, you can't pull the month of March and look at your gross sales for only overnight stays.
It won't tell me anything that wasn't taxed for now I can do a revenue report, but the revenue report is separate from my tax report. And which means I'm going to have to dig in and see if that's possible.
And then what you're going to find is that you're going to, out of the hundreds of people that we have doing this, they're all doing it different.
Yeah,
And they're all using
every
different,
system is totally
And
different.
they're all
when you
doing-
make it difficult,
and we don't want to make it difficult.
Yeah, I'm
They-
afraid
But it would be
be
nice if we knew, because then we could compare with what the numbers that were being given by
It would
our
be
locals. And then we can compare it to what we're getting from Airbnb, and if those don't line up, we could then
We
say
know-
something's not right.
yeah.
Patrick,
something's
does VRBO collect?
They don't.
They don't.
And we don't use them. I hate them. Can't stand them. I'm just going
Hot
to be
take.
honest.
We've had no success with it.
What the problem that I have is now if my booking software actually worked with VRBO, it would be great. But right now, I've had so many double bookings when I was set up with them because something would book and the email would come in like after someone would book on my other system.
Can we set up a time with you to, do you mind for us to look at your account to see
And
what
I'd
it
like
looks
for Heather
like?
to sit in on that, 'cause
I can show you.
I think Heather would have some insight.
I think it
on
might be
that.
beneficial
Yeah, I
for,
agree.
for sure Scott and Libby
If you're
to
going to do
see
that,
what
maybe
you
we
guys
might
are.
ask a couple of Airbnb.
Well, and I may even learn something about the reporting that's available to me that I just don't understand.
Because, I mean, realistically, we want to make sure it's simple and easy for them, right? No, not difficult, because when we make it difficult, we don't want anyone to cut corners and things like that, so. But I think it would be great, it would be awesome if they could tell us, if they would tell us these things.
would.
Because like you said, we can double check everything.
There's also another company called Evolve, and they're out of Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I have been working with them because they're sending me a check, but they're not telling me to whom give credit for that. But they are reaching out, and they are giving me the information I'm requesting. So there's a lot of things going on in the office to capture sales tax and sales, and I'm sure it'll grow even more than that. But that's the three areas: Airbnb, Evolve, and VRBO. But I just kind of wanted you to look at the sales tax monthly report when you're sitting at home, and if you got any questions, let me know, because this is a living, breathing document we can modify.
If
And
I'm
that was a
having
good
trouble
point.
sleeping, I'll look, no, I'm kidding.
Actually, thank you very
Yes.
much.
Thank you so much for knowing this
This
stuff.
is more tax money so that we can bring in more business.
Well, and better reporting means,
reporting.
Yes.
means more
accurate.
accuracy.
Yeah, it's
That's right.
accurate.
Excellent.
Okay, so I want to wrap this up because we've already kind of gone over our hour. Thank you so much, Scott.
Yeah,
Keep working
thanks.
on it, and then whenever you feel like you've got it ready for us to actually put it in a meeting, let's do that.
And I'll be happy, I can even log in on any computer with my system.
And maybe you
show
should try to meet with a few Airbnb-type people. Does
Just
Melissa?
Airbnb, right?
Well, Airbnb, VRBO, that,
Yeah, she does VRBO and Airbnb, I
Melissa
believe.
does?
But actually, I think, tell you the truth, I think Melissa told me that she's only doing VRBO right now,
yeah.
Really?
so.
So she might be someone that, we probably should pick a few people you visit with and see how difficult is it going to be? Are we going to put a kind of a undue burden on them?
Well, once we get to the process before we finally decide this is where we're going, we're definitely going to test market and figure out if this, what we need to do to make it better, or are we even then going in the right direction with this?
Yeah.
So
Well, and right now, straight Airbnb people aren't reporting, are they?
not.
No.
Oh, no.
They
No,
don't
not
have
reporting.
to.
They don't even have to get a permit. They don't even have to get a license from us.
Really?
Right, so,
That's terrible.
so we don't know. We don't know, but we should require a license from them and let them report, and then let them deduct it so that they're not paying
Yeah.
twice. Okay, anything else? All right,
That's
we're
it.
done.
Sounds good.
Thank you. That's great.